So, Halloween is upon us once again. Funny stories are well and good, but sometimes we need to embrace our darker sides. And what better way than the art of horror? Greetings, I am Ethan, the Lord of Death, and for this Halloween, I am borrowing this mansion from an acquaintance of mine. I figure if I'm telling dark stories, might as well go the distance. You're probably wondering about the candelabra. Well, I have 3 stories to share, and I have a candle for each. Let's say a number of lives are tied to each of these candles. As I tell them, many lives will be snuffed, and at the end of them, as is with the lives, so too will the candles be snuffed. Now, to the first room, shall we? Quite the collection, isn't it? Many toys, dolls, and plushed friends from all over many worlds. Don't worry, these are harmless. However, I do know of one creature that takes the guise of, well, shall we say, it's a perfect predator. A fascinating creature, really. The first story I shall tell will be of this creature, known simply as the Vumble. There are few creatures like the Vumble. Its scope of evil will make you crumble. It starts as a cute and fluffy teddy bear. The cuteness it brings will give your eyes a tear. It has a little zipper at the top of its head. All this makes it seem a good friend for bed. Oddly enough, it starts off sweet and loving. All its care will truly scare. For the prey it seeks is the love you leak. And woe be to you if you offer all your love to give. You will wish to have never lived. With more love it grows stronger, and then it gets even hungrier. Your love won't be enough to feed it, so it will go for your energy. At this point, it was without a doubt meant to be, for now your energy will not be enough. Now it will be your life. It will snuff. First it flays your skin and eat it whole. Then strip the innards from your bones. It eats it all from your liver to your spleen. By then you will have cursed what you have seen. Poor soul, you should have pulled the zipper and pushed it in the sun, because then the deed shall be done. But alas, it's your bones being done, as it sucks the marrow and lets it crumble. You should have fled, but it's too late, for now you are victim to the Vumble. Hello again. Sorry the story was so short. However, the other stories will surely sate your appetite. Consider the first story an appetizer. And now we move on to the main course. Some of you may be wondering how my acquaintance came about this mansion. Well, from time to time, someone asks me for things. This person wanted wealth, so I directed them to an untapped source of ore, minerals, and gemstones. They mined it and made a fortune. Why bring this up? Well, the next story involves a mine with some rather nasty denizens. This story is about survival and to be wary of what may lurk around every corner. There are thousands of towns near mines or underground tunnels, all of which run deep underground. And there are dangers. The further you go, the more dangerous it becomes. Increased rates of cave ins, air getting thinner, and even pockets of poisonous gas. However, this story is of one town in particular that has an old mine shaft next to it that leads to one danger no one would ever think could exist so deep under the surface. The beginning of this story takes place with a missing child. No one knew what happened to the child, and after a while, the search was called off, and the child proclaimed dead. And because of this, rumors and false stories were told of what happened, even some becoming local legends. A majority of which involved the mine just outside of town. However, the truth is always stranger than fiction. Many years later, a group of teenagers were being typical teenagers, trying to prove they are invincible to each other. Meanwhile, a shy, mild-mannered girl who wanted to fit in secretly followed the group, and later, the teenagers arrived at the mine outside of town. When it was time to enter, however, none of the group was willing to enter. It was then the girl came out of hiding, saying she would go in the mine. The teenagers were surprised. Some did not know who she was, but the others who did praised her for her courage. And so, despite her instincts telling her not to, she proceeded into the mine. The girl traveled deeper and deeper beneath the ground, with only her phone for light, as she slowly stumbles through the darkness. She trips and falls deeper into the dark depths, and as she gets up, she sees a faint glow a little ways away. As she approached the light, she started to hear a low growling sound. The closer she got, the clearer the sound became. The sound was growling, beast-like voices talking to each other. They were arguing with each other, saying that they need more. Of what, however, the girl did not know. As she approached the voices, she saw two frightening creatures. They were 7 feet tall, scrawny, hyena-like creatures. As they see the girl, they show large smiles filled with fangs. And to the girl's surprise, they welcome her with glee and tell her that they are happy to meet her, and told her that their king would also love to meet her. And so she agreed to follow the two creatures further into the mines to meet their king. After some time, the girl and the creatures arrived at a chamber to find a stone city, a ruin of a lost civilization. And at the center, a large stone throne, and sitting in it was another creature much like the ones who brought the girl here. However, this one was easily 3 feet taller than the others and extremely more muscular. It was clear that this was the king. As they approached, the king looked up and starts speaking in a deeper voice than its servants. It says that it has been years since a human has come down here. The king explained that he and his people are called gnolls, and they had a beneficial relationship with humans, and laughed. While the king laughed, the girl looked around and recognized some of the objects around the foot of the throne. They were human bones. As it dawned on her, the Gnoll King grabbed a giant bloody cleaver and says, "Thanks for the meal." As soon as he said that, the girl ran with all her might, and the free Gnoll gave chase. The girl climbed and clambered. As the gnolls started to get closer, while their mouths slobbered and their eyes filled with bloodlust and hunger. Fear and survival instinct drove the girl to climb faster, until finally she reached the exit of the mine. Panting and out of breath, the girl looked around, but the gnoll were nowhere to be found. Confusion fills the girl's face when one of the teenagers appears behind her and says that they were worried and that they all went into the mine to find her. The girl's face turns pale as she hears this, knowing full well what would transpire. As this thought crossed her mind, the teenager's screams can be heard from within the mine, and beastly laughter straight after. Seeing the fear in her eyes and hearing the laughter, the lone teenager asks the girl what happened, and she said to stay away or they will come. And now is the end of our tale, and if you're wondering what happened to the girl, no one believed her story and dismissed it as nonsense. However, this will not be the last the girl will see of them. For every night, her dreams will turn into nightmares, for all she will see are the vicious and horrid Null. Life and death. Such a delicate balance. A balance that, when disturbed, can cause misery. Those Null are but one example of this intricate balance. I have but only one tale left to share, but this one truly emphasizes this balance, for a single death can cause the end of many lives, intended or not. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. The debt of blood must be paid in full. Vengeance can drive a being to break or fix the ever delicate balance. Now, let's see how this final story progresses, shall we? This is an old story about an ancient being older than the oldest of trees and fiercer than any beast. And most terrifying of all, it is far wiser and far more cunning than any other creature. No one knows the origins of this creature or what it even is. All they know is two things. First, cross the creature, you and all you love will die. And secondly, the creature is known simply as the father of crows. The only accounts of the father's existence are legends, folk tales, and old lore. Although there was a report of teenagers witnessing an unidentified large bird-like creature killing one of their classmates. I will now recount the story of a boy who went hunting with his father and brought back more than stories. Once, not too long ago, a boy whose name has been forgotten went on a hunting trip with his father to a remote town at the edge of a large forest, a family tradition for generations from father to son. The son must take the life of another creature, be it deer or boar, any animal will do, although this hunt will go much different. As they left their vehicle to set up camp, the forest itself seems to emanate an energy that seems to scream at all who approach to turn back or else. They set up camp not too far into the forest. The son asks his father why they are not camping further into the woods. The father says that the townspeople have superstitions about the deep woods, that something terrifying lives there, and any who enter risk a dark fate. Although the father does not believe in the stories, but he did not want to risk the locals getting angry and ruining the trip for them. And so the duo departed into the woods. After days, the boy had yet to successfully hunt an animal. His father assured him that it is all right. However, the boy can sense the sadness in his father's eyes. So on that night, whilst his father slept, the boy snuck off, gun in hand, into the depths of the forest. As the boy ventured deeper into the woods, he noticed it was getting darker and darker, and there were no animals to be found. What was to be found were wooden signs on the trees and in the dirt, many of which say things you would expect, such as turn back or no trespassing. But as the boy got further and further, he noticed the signs were becoming more and more ominous, saying things like, "Beware his gaze," or "Nowhere is safe from his shadow." As he passes the last of these signs, the boy felt as if a dark presence turned all its attention to him. The boy knew he had reached the deepest part of the forest. The depths of the forest were darker than any other darkness. The sounds of the trees were deafening. In his panic, the boy saw something fly past him. And in response, he fires the gun in his hands, and then the sounds stop, and his vision restored, only to see the body of his kill. A crow, if only he knew what he had done. The boy rushed back to the camp to show his father the body of the crow he shot. When the boy returned to camp, he hurried to his father. The father was worried about his son, but when the boy told him what he did, his father told him he was proud of him. When the duo returned home, there they told the story of their trip to the boy's mother and grandmother, whilst his pet dog had its dinner. All seemed to be well. At least it was until that night. The boy awoke from his slumber, feeling as if someone or something was in the room with him. He opened his eyes with a startle to see nothing. He looked around, but nothing. He then closed his eyes and rested his head. And shortly afterwards, the boy opened his eyes once more to see a massive shadow at the foot of his bed and giant, almost glowing yellow eyes staring at him. The boy jumped in panic as the shadow moved with great speed and went through the door as if it was a ghost. The boy rushed to the door and opened it only to see the shadow move through the house as if it was flying. Then it went outside. As it did, a loud yelp could be heard. The boy rushed outside to find a mangled and torn animal carcass, the torn, lifeless body of his pet dog. Examinations showed that the body was torn by what appears to be a giant bird-like creature. The boy started to panic, thinking that this was all his fault. Night after night, the ones he loved died in similar ways as his dog. First his grandmother, then his mother, and finally his father. Fearing for his life, the boy took the body of the crow and fled back to the woods where he and his father went hunting. At the town, the boy heard of a hunter who has lived there for years. After meeting the hunter, he explained to the boy that he was the one who put signs in the forest, for he went through the same thing himself. The hunter told the boy, in order to save himself, the boy must take the dead crow back to the wood's depths and lay it to rest. The creature will then visit the grave and leave one of its feathers on the grave for respect. Take the feather and it will leave you be. However, if you ever leave the feather behind for even a second, it will show and prey upon you. As the boy was leaving, the hunter warned him that as soon as he steps foot in the forest, the creature will show itself and will mercilessly hunt him down until he reaches the depths. As soon as he stepped into the forest, the creature shows itself, not as a shadow, but as a 12-foot tall bird-like creature. Upon seeing this, the boy ran with haste, dodging the creature with minimal success until he reached the depths of the forest. The boy took a breath and proceeded to bury the dead crow. Then he hid afterwards. The creature approached the grave and plucked one of its own feathers and laid it upon it and left immediately. The boy rushed forward and took the feather, and then a feeling of safety washed over him. Days later, the boy was on his way to school when the local bullies showed up and picked a fight with him. During the confrontation, one of the bullies took the black feather from the boy. Pure terror was visible on the boy's face, and soon the bullies as well. Seeing this, the boy slowly turns around and screams. The creature has shown itself, and in an instant kills the boy. That ends the first documented account of the creature known as the Father of Crows. And so our night of horror has come to an end. I thank you for joining me this night. Such a lovely mansion. Such a shame it has to go. Hmm? Oh, my acquaintance? They tried to cheat my deal, so I made it fair once again. Who knows what will happen next year? I might just share more stories. Until then, farewell. Oh, and Happy Halloween.